Galvez is haunted?
Sister Katherine was protecting the children. Death was imminent.
They were buried where they found them.
I was afraid to open my eyes and actually see somebody there. I turned around, there was nobody there.
It was very spooky.
When you think about Texas, what comes to mind? Big money, big oil, sure. But beaches? Well, my friends, if you drive through the Lone Star State on Route 45, you'll eventually cross the bay that leads to Galveston Island. And in Galveston, you'll find a vacation paradise. Go surfing. Take a bike ride along the coast, or walk along the shore. But beware. You see, on the beaches of Galveston, there is a much greater danger than sunburn.
Galveston itself is, haunted by a lot of ghost spirits. Galveston is a pretty haunted island. A lot of it is attributed to a lot of history here, a lot of history here.
There have been many tragedies in Galveston. There were lives lost. Spirits here draw on the energy of the water. There is the ability of these spirits to communicate with us. You're going to find many spirits walking the beach. So as you're out there getting a suntan, remember that you may have 5 or 6 spirits walking past you that day. You're never going to be walking alone.
The evil that washes over this paradise is nothing new. Spanish explorers called this place the Island of Doom because there were so many deadly shipwrecks here. But it was eventually renamed Galveston in honor of Bernardo de Galvez. He built a settlement here in the 1800s. In fact, there is a beautiful hotel right on the beach. And of course, it's named in honor of him. Many will tell you that Senor Galvez spirit is still here.
The hotel is named after Count Bernardo de Galvez. The portrait of him hangs at the west foyer of the Hotel Galvez. The eyes, his eyes are so white in the portrait, they follow you.
He is still keeping an eye on the place. Of course, that gig keeps him pretty busy. You see, at this seaside resort, demons wander the halls as frequently as bellboys.
Here at the Hotel Galvez, there are many, many ghost stories. There is a businessman in the penthouse area. Ghosts are literally coming out of the woodwork here.
When I was walking up late at night, I smelled incense. It wasn't like a new smell. It was very old, very musky, more along the lines that people used to wear over 100 years ago. And people don't wear those anymore. The feeling that you're being watched when you know nothing is there, and it's that unnerving bit that just kind of makes you want to go find a real person and just talk to them and hang out with them for a minute to make sure that you're not actually losing your mind.
These occurrences happen often for us, and it's just kind of a day-to-day, everyday thing for hotel employees.
Demon smoke wafting, eyes from the other side following you. But trust me, my story is just beginning. You see, the manicured gardens of this hotel hide deadly secrets. One in particular about a beautiful woman who is still waiting.
She had come here on her honeymoon after the hotel had been built, and her husband had been called away to sea because he was a merchant prince. And there was a huge storm, and his ship went down.
her lover had been killed at sea in an accident. And the feeling was that she had no life, that she had no future.
So she was completely devastated, and she hung herself.
The story alone leaves one sad and disturbed.
If you think this young woman ending her life in such a violent way is disturbing, the ironic twist is her fiancé's ship might have gone down, but it turns out he didn't exactly go down with it.
And sure enough, within the week, here comes her fiancé to the front desk asking for his bride.
The sad spirit of this beautiful young woman wanders these halls, looking for her true love, unaware that he is waiting for her on the other side.
A lady in white has been sighted on the 5th floor going around the corner. Even in other parts of the hotel, this lady has been sighted. In her room, when she wants to be alone, nobody can get in that room. No key will work.
One night I stayed in a room here. I was going to bed and felt pressure beside my leg on the bed, as if someone had kneeled or sat or even put just like a hand down. And I could feel it. And I sat there for a little bit with my eyes closed because I was afraid to open my eyes and actually maybe see somebody there. And when I opened them, I could still feel the pressure, and there wasn't anybody there.
The story of the heartbroken ghost is enough to make your skin crawl. But wait, there is a perfect storm coming of evil and death.
With the eye of the storm, they thought they were safe. They did not survive.
Welcome to the sandy beaches of Galveston, Texas, where you're bound to have some fun in the sun. But this paradise is not just swarming with tourists, it's also crawling with death. The Hotel Galvez is a beautiful resort right on the beach. But here's the thing, the visitors crowding the rooms aren't just paying customers. Oh no. This place is totally booked, with freeloading ghosts. The dead stay here because there were so many tragic deaths that took place through the years. But of all the tragedies this place witnessed, the most deadly of all came from Mother Nature herself.
This 1900 storm was the greatest natural disaster in the United States at that time. September the 7th, the night before, was a lovely, lovely evening. The next morning, waves were coming very, very, very high tide when the wind should have been pushing it back.
In 1900, there were no perky weathermen with Doppler maps who could warn of a brutal storm. When the winds whipped up, people here were taken completely by surprise. It was a catastrophic, deadly disaster filled with horrific tales of misery and despair. And Sister Katherine, a young nun who had cared for children at a small orphanage just up the beach from where the Hotel Galvez now stands. As the storm's ferocity tore into the island, she did everything she could to protect the 9 orphans in her care.
The nuns at the orphanage were getting to be really scared and nervous because of all the wind and the rain that was kicking up. And where they were at was not that stable.
Sister Katherine was protecting the children, and she was trying to make light of the situation. They were singing songs. Some of the older children may have been aware that there was something to be afraid of.
So they decided to make a run for higher ground. They thought that they could make a break for it. because the eye of the storm was just now coming over. They ended up tying themselves and children together. They wrapped each child around with these cords. They thought that that might be strong enough for them to survive. With the eye of the storm, they thought they were safe, and they decided to go outside.
Some of the younger children actually saw this as an adventure.
The storm got the better of them. They did not survive.
Being tied up caused them to become more entangled and drown. Trying to save them ended up causing a tragedy.
Sadly, Sister Katherine and all 9 children died, their lungs filled with raging water. This beautiful beach became their final resting place, and just 11 years later, right on top of their sandy graves, up went the Hotel Galvez. So it's only natural that the good sister and the children in her care consider this beach and this hotel theirs for the rest of time.
There is a nun indeed in a long dark habit who watches the sea. She is Sister Katherine, who washed up on the shore near here. Sister Katherine truly saw these children as God's children, so there was a love beyond what you might think a nun would have for an orphan. It was a mother and child love. To this day, her feeling that if she can prevent children from dying in a storm, she's going to do it.
To this day, people do see a nun when big storms come in, that she is waving at people to let them know that there is a storm coming in. She wants to make sure people are protected.
Sister Katherine is still watching for storms, trying to protect her orphans. But she cannot prevent them from freely wandering around the Hotel Galvez.
And all of a sudden, I heard a little boy. It creeped me out.
In Galveston, Texas, the weather is unpredictable, but you can count on a kindly nun, the spirit of Sister Katherine, watching the waters, warning you of approaching storms. You see, my friends, back in 1900, a fierce hurricane drowned a good sister and 9 orphans in her care. They were tied together for safety, trying to reach higher ground in the eye of the storm. But fickle fate and Mother Nature had other ideas. Their bodies washed up on the beach, buried right here, on the very spot where they built the Hotel Galvez. So while Sister Katherine watches the weather, the children, they like to play, and their spirits forever mischievous.
The minute I walked into the ladies' bathroom downstairs, I felt that someone was present. I felt they had been expecting me. And little tricks being played, such as the water turning on or the lights going on and off. And the door, which was locked, had been pulled open, as in surprise, because no one was there to have opened the door. This is simply a mischievous spirit, and I felt that this spirit was having a great amount of fun.
I was on the phone with one of the guests, and she was up on the 7th floor in the presidential suite, and she was called down. She's like, I just wanted to let you know that the shower keeps turning on and off. And then she goes, there it goes, and I could hear it running in the background. I heard it turn on.
Oh, these little kitties are certainly clever, aren't they? Reminds me of when I was a boy, and just like the tricks I used to play, these kids will prank anyone.
I was working one night. I heard voices. I thought it was a guest trying to get in, and they would eventually ring the doorbell. The voices were high-pitched. When I continued to hear the voices, I walked across the lobby and walked towards the back doors, looked down the stairs, and there wasn't anybody there. Came back up the stairs, kind of shaking my head like, what was that about? I was spooked.
I was working in the bar at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There was nobody in the restaurant that had been closed for at least an hour. There were no guests in the lobby. And all of a sudden, I heard a little boy calling for his mom, and he couldn't have sounded more than 3 or 4 years old. He sounded really scared, like he didn't know what was going on. And it was right behind me. When I turned around, there was nobody there. It completely unnerved me, and I was on edge for the rest of the day until I left, and it creeped me out.
Around here, the voices of these disembodied children echo everywhere. You see, these unfortunate orphans were deprived of a caring and loving family. They are forever lost. Though they play their mischievous games, all they're really looking for is a little attention.
I was putting some wine away with my coworkers, and we left after we had put it away, and we were standing around the kitchen, and we could hear them falling in there, and it was very strange. And they were all on the floor, and it was very spooky.
And you think your kids are a handful? Trust me, what you've heard so far is just child's play.
And this little girl just appeared miraculously.
Today in Galveston, Texas, the Hotel Galvez is now the permanent home for the ghost of 9 orphans lost in the Great Hurricane of 1900. To this day, the spirit of their sister Katherine, the nun caring for them, also roams Galveston, and she has a bond with these orphans that will never die, and she obsesses over protecting them from the destructive force of Mother Nature. And the kids? Well, as the guests at the Hotel Galvez know, they're still kids.
One of my coworkers was in the basement, and she heard a little girl playing with a ball bouncing around in the basement. No one had been in the basement. It kind of unnerved her, and children aren't allowed down there anyway. When we hear things, we just kind of go the other way because we don't really want to be around it. It's a little too creepy.
Well, the orphan spirits finally have a place where they can feel at home. They use this hotel as their little playground. And like boys and girls of today, these children like to play games. You see, they don't realize that they've stepped over to the other side.
There's this light that appeared, and this little girl just appeared miraculously on the 2nd floor. And then poof, disappeared.
We also got reports that when they were doing the reconstruction in the basement, that construction workers were seeing a little girl with a ball playing downstairs.
My friend Brooke, she works in the restaurant with me. We work Sunday brunch out on the veranda, and one day she had been setting up her tray stands.
I was serving some guests, and my tray was sitting there. Most of the drinks were empty. The tray had flipped over, but the tray stand was still standing. I looked back and no one was around it, so it was very strange. And it was very annoying because it was in the middle of brunch.
Nobody was around it. That's when it startled me, and it unnerved me a little bit because things don't fall over for no reason.
When the tray fell over, I was annoyed because it felt like a trickster had knocked it over.
Tricksters indeed. And though they are playful as any living child, the sad truth is that these junior spirits will never rest. But kids, even dead ones, will be kids. You see, since they have no family waiting for them on the other side, they choose to stay here with the only family they've ever known, Sister Katherine, the kindly nun, and her guilt of losing the orphans under her care so long ago pushes her spirit to never stop caring. So my friends, while you're covering yourself with SPF 50 on the beaches of Galveston, just remember that Sister Katherine is there not only protecting the children, she also keeps an eye on the weather and the community of Galveston, Texas. You see, her eternal soul is there to protect you, too. God bless, and nighty-night.